So we have heard a lot about the blockchain. Blockchain's a hype. Everybody's talking about the blockchain, how blockchain will revolutionize the world, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So I am not a blockchain maximalist. I don't think that blockchain will change everything. I think it can help, though. So a lot of things are happening in the blockchain space. It's receiving a lot of investments. It's receiving a lot of people that are very interested and very excited about the field. But we have a big problem here. Blockchain started with Bitcoin. That is what has been tried to be explained in the blockchain bingo, right? Blockchain can be used for many other things, but Bitcoin is very, very biased towards certain narrative. Blockchain mimics gold, blockchain is scarce, blockchain is competitive, individualistic. The values of blockchain have nothing to do with the commons, okay? So a lot of people that have come into the blockchain are carrying with themselves certain narratives. Narratives that are techno-deterministic, market-driven, and basically mimicking Silicon Valley ideas of success, ideas of, well, we know that, right? We know I don't think that I have to explain what are the problems with these visions. So what I would love to do here is to try to create new narratives around blockchain. So can we think about other things that we can do with this technology? Can we get out of the box of these narratives and think about ways in which the technology doesn't solve everything? We need a social component. It's not that the technology will decide everything for us, but the governance has to be involving humans. It's not just the code who will decide everything, right? Can we create solutions to social problems that are not market-driven? Because nowadays, in the blockchain space, every new ICO, every new initiative is basically creating a currency and creating a new market that will solve whatever problem we are talking about. Well, I'm a bit skeptical to that. I think that blockchain has a lot of potential, and yet I don't think that markets can solve every problem that we have on Earth, right? And of course, ideally, we can deploy narratives that are based on commons and not on Silicon Valley narratives. So Elinor Ostrom, Nobel Prize of Economics, 2009, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, developed a theory, how can we manage common pool resources, commons, in a way that is beyond the market dynamics and the state dynamics. So no central top-down institutions and no market logic of competitive individuals or companies competing for the price like the miners do. So I will go very quickly because we are trying to do this more bottom-up than from here. So I will try to go very quickly through the principles, very quickly through some features of blockchain, and how one can match the other, okay? So this is part of a project that David and Sam are part of. We had the luck of receiving funding from the European Commission for working on this. It's a 5-year project based on Madrid and with help from the Berkman Center in Boston. And we are hiring, so please, if you are interested, talk to us. So, what are the principles? Very, very quickly, Ostrom saw that for communities to be resilient, for communities to be more efficient than both state or market initiatives in order to manage the governance of commons, the communities need to have clear boundaries of who belongs to the community and who does not. The rules of these communities have to be adapted to their local conditions, so it's not coming from afar. These rules have to be agreed by the people themselves. The decision-making has to be participatory and inclusive with those people in the communities. But at the same time, we have to be monitoring what's the behavior that people are following, just to see if people are following the rules. And if they are not, we should do sanctioning, certain sum of sanctioning, but sanctions that can be graduated and decided ad hoc by the communities, for the communities, right? For that, we need conflict resolution mechanisms that are decided by their communities. And in order to have those, we need to have recognition by higher authorities and basically leave us alone, leave us have certain level of autonomy that we can self-organize in a way that we can decide how people are sanctioned or how we resolve our own conflicts. And these initiatives can scale if we have basically multiple layers. So how do we scale? Well, federation structures in which local nodes are federated by networks or and federation of networks and stuff like that. So this is basically the principles for governance of the commons that Ostrom laid out. So how does that have relation with the blockchain or with the blockchain bingo before? Okay, so the blockchain bingo defined the lower aspects of blockchain, the more technical ones. I will get in a very upper level of abstraction. Basically, when we connect to a website, we are very used to connecting to a website and everybody connects to the same website. Doesn't matter if it's Wikipedia, the blog of my friend, or a Google Maps, we all connect to the same website, right? We all connect to a website that is running on some cloud, but there is no cloud, just someone else's computer. So we are connecting to a computer that is 24 hours connected, it's a server. That's how we call these computers that are all connected. And this server has basically two things. It stores data and it computes. It executes instructions. It just does that. So we access the data of that server and we execute the operations interacting with the website, right? If I ask a direction in Google Maps, it executes some instructions in order to give it to me. So the blockchain is basically an alternative to this. It's basically a way in which we can have a network storing and executing instructions. That is a network that replaces what a server does. We can deploy a kind of web service on the blockchain, and this data is stored in all the nodes of the blockchain, and the instructions are executed in a distributed way by the miners, but we don't care about that. I just get the idea that it's replacing the server, so it's serverless, the infrastructures of the blockchain. We can deploy services. One service can be a currency, but we can deploy many other services, not necessarily a currency, okay? We can deploy code that is executed in these networks that we call the smart contracts, but it doesn't matter the name. It's just that we can code agreements. We can even create an association between all of us. If it was a legal association, we would need some bylaws that define the interactions between all of us, right? Who's responsible, how do we take decisions, and stuff like that. We can do the same on the blockchain, but instead of having a legal structure, these bylaws are encoded and the rules are in the blockchain. Where is that? Well, it's nowhere and everywhere and at the same time. It's in this network, okay? There is no one controlling the server, so no one that can pull it down. Typically, we are used to think about platforms and web services needing to trust this central actor that has the server, that has the platform. Here, there is not such a thing, because the network is distributed, the code is distributed, the platform is distributed, there is no single owner of the infrastructure. So, blockchain has certain features. How much time do I have?
3 minutes.
Yeah. Blockchain has certain features that make it some kind of special. We can easily create tokens within blockchain, okay? So that's why the cryptocurrencies boom. A currency is just a type of token that we can create on the blockchain. We could have other types of tokens that are not scarcity-based or competition-based. We can have tokens for voting. We can have tokens for ownership of assets, tokens that represent reputation, and then I cannot transfer them. The matter doesn't make sense to transfer reputation. Blockchain allows self-enforcement of the code. This code that is executed, I'm not depending on a server to do it. It's the network that does it. So basically, if I encode an agreement that we sign, then the code decides when it's executed and how it is executed. The rules are embedded in that code. So it self-enforces the agreements. It's it can have very high levels of autonomy. The code that I deploy, a web service that I deploy in a server depends on the owner of the server. But if I deploy the code in the blockchain, unless the code says so, no one is controlling it. And if you want to use that code, if it says Summer can modify this whenever he wants, you need to trust me, right? If you want to use that code. But if it doesn't say so, then it can have other ways of managing that code. For example, the users must be in agreement for the code to be changed. So then the platform evolves how the users can decide how the platform evolves. So Apache is not applied unless the users agree, for example. We can play with governance on how the code evolves, how the platform evolves, which is very different if you think about it from an Airbnb or a Google Maps, where the users have no saying on how the platform evolves, right? So we are decentralizing who controls the infrastructure, because there is no single owner of that infrastructure. Everything on the blockchain is transparent. It's not encrypted. We have cryptography for ensuring that things are secure, but everything on the blockchain is transparent. Everyone can see everything that is being executed on the blockchain. It's true that we don't have real identities there, so you don't know who is the person that is doing what, but still you see that this thing has been done. Okay? And basically, this shifts trust from the central owner of the infrastructure to trusting that code that is out there and that anyone can execute. It's not trust disappear, it's that you are trusting the infrastructure, you are trusting the code, right? And we can, of course, depend on new organizations that deploy stuff, new people that have a certain level of reputation or whatever, and you trust, and whatever. So how can all this mess help Commons? So I will go in 1 minute, super quickly. For example, tokens can facilitate governance. For example, giving you permissions to do certain stuff. If I hold a token, I can do certain stuff. If I don't hold the token, I don't. Or I can have permissions or rights or capacity to vote, right? Or only people with this level of reputation, so this amount of tokens, can do whatever. So we can, this can help to define local rules and the boundaries of communities, right? We can self-enforce, as we can self-enforce with these smart contracts in the blockchain, this can facilitate monitoring, everything is transparent, and sanctions, because if I don't follow the rules, the code says that I will be punished in a certain way. And everyone can see the code, so everyone can see what will happen if I do that, or what would happen if I do this other thing. These high levels of autonomy allow conflict resolution in a new way. Because basically, for example, if we are talking about two Fab Labs that are trying to network each other, we can have code to interface between the Fab Labs. This can facilitate scalability, this can facilitate conflict resolution, and even inclusiveness, because we have to talk in practice about all the possible scenarios in order to encode it. Formalization forces you to talk about how things work. It forces you to talk about invisible work. It forces you to talk about maintenance. It forces you to talk about everything that has to be encoded in certain rules. So we are decentralizing power, which can facilitate more participatory structures. We can have transparency already mentioned. Blah, blah, blah. I think I will close here. Very quickly, I'm so sorry.
In the mid-90s, I was running an ISP. And an ISP is an internet service provider. Did anyone... I'm not going to... Don't worry. Okay, thank you very much for that. And we were using open source software, Linux, for all our servers. and pilfered servers from other places. And there were hundreds of ISPs. It was amazing. We were all connecting together, and the reason why we were connecting together was because of an open protocol called TCP/IP, and that's the basis of the internet. And I became an open protocol evangelist, and I just wanted to see open protocols everywhere so that marketplaces could be formed and networks could be formed from open protocols. And what open protocols enables is for disparate organizations, people, individuals, whatever, to talk with each other and understand each other. Language is an open protocol, in a sense. And so I set up a mission to try and make the media industry much more interoperable and much more friendly for creatives. And that was called Kendra. And now it's called Kendra.io, just so you know. And what we wanted to do was drive open protocols within the media industry. And this is now, I guess, a 20-year-old project. And it was hard, because when you get a load of filmmakers and music makers into a room and say, can we make an open protocol? They haven't got a clue what you're talking about. And rightly so. They want to create media, and they want to create their art. That's what they want to do. So we set about trying to figure out other ways of making open protocols and then getting them adopted, and that whole thing. Now, one of the biggest problems, as I just said, is getting things adopted. So we can have wonderful ideas, amazing ideas, but if they're not adopted, then it's like there's no point. So currently, what we are doing, we were lucky enough to get some funding from the EU a year ago, and we have 2 more years of this funding. We're in an EU project with 6 other organizations, and we are building a blockchain media copyright something. And it's called Blumen, and it's going to be a kind of a reference implementation of some sort of distribution system, and it's kind of in evolution. We've got 2 more years to go. What Kendra.io is doing is creating an application to enable artists and managers and record labels and even copyright protection societies like the PPL or the PRS to manage copyright information and around media. Now, okay, this is a very small sector, but what's very interesting about what we're doing is we're creating an application that can plug into multiple services and present a dashboard of those services. So, and I'll show you a little bit of what we've been doing. Because what we found out is really that there are more and more services coming out for, just take the artistic sector. For an artist to be able to distribute their content, they can do it on SoundCloud, YouTube, all of the different distribution systems, and each time they want to upload a video or a track or an image, they have to go to that website and do it manually, and it's very time consuming. So these basically are, the first stage of our app really is to just cut down the admin time. Now, so what we're not trying to do is get people to do something completely different, because we know that people don't have enough headspace to even do the things that they do, you know, so we want to just make the things that they do easier. So therefore it's kind of, that's the hook. The idea is to build a dashboard that, well, why don't I just show you and then we'll take it from there. This is a very small kind of idea, a kind of stage of what we're up to. So imagine that an application presents your whole world view for a particular thing, travel, or opinions, or in this case, media. what we're doing is we are building adapters for different services. So, for example, you can have, we can enable some adapters here. Now, one thing, .bc, it's a blockchain project. There are going to be tens, hundreds, thousands of new blockchain projects. For an artist to sign up to each one of them is going to be a nightmare because they won't know what to choose and they just want to try things out. So what the nice thing about the app is, the app will understand who you are. You can register with a click of the button because it will be able to send all your information. You'll be able to upload, well, I'll show you that in a second, your media into this service. So let's do a few of these. Okay, Apple Music is there. So I guess what I'm trying to say is think of these not just in the media sector, but also in other sectors as well. So we're aggregating service providers, old, current, and new, and not even thought of yet. We're providing a unified interface to abstract away so that the user only has to deal with one way of working. Just hold everything, okay? And then we're aggregating functionality. So we can have an upload functionality and this is meant to be a pretty picture. So that's how easy it should be to upload your track to all of these different places with the metadata. So that's how easy it should be to cast your vote across multiple different voting systems. And also, what about the back channel? Bringing stuff back, visualizing all the votes that are being talked about a particular issue. We can't do that now. We can't poll 360 or Avaz or, we don't want to have these as different websites. We want a unified service so we can understand what's going on in the world. And the same for when I release a track, what's my fan engagement? What are my downloads? I don't want to have to go to YouTube and SoundCloud and Spotify individually and download their stuff. I want my app just to visualize it all. So, in a sense, we're creating a kind of like a dashboard for services that are out there, and this, just one last thing, it's about individual autonomy, that I am now in control of my data, now in control of my life as an artist, as an individual, as someone who's helping manage artists, and anyway, use your imagination. Thank you very much, I think.
Thank you.
Cheers.
That was great. So we've got time now for taking a few questions, and then what we're going to do is set some discussion topics, and you'll be able to talk a bit more with our speakers and some of their colleagues who are here today with us as well, and myself, and that will start after lunch. So first of all, any questions? We have a roving mic. Yeah, we've got a gentleman in the front and someone on the second row there.
My question is, how do you relate to the desire to create one system to rule them all, and the centralization that represents?
A Lord of the Rings question to start us off. Perfect. Can I take two at once, and then we'll just see what we've got. Yep.
Maybe we split because I have a question for the first speaker. So
yep,
maybe
that's cool.
Yeah, okay.
Yep, should we hear it as well? Yep.
Okay, yeah. So I agree with most of the things you said, and I actually really like Ostrom's work. And in a blockchain perspective, I think the one hidden challenge has to do with decentralization of infrastructure, as you talked about. The way that blockchains accomplish that is through classic economic incentives. If you want to have a permissionless network, so how are you thinking about that? That's my question.
Great. So we'll do this. We'll take them in two, so it gives people time to think, if that's okay. So Daniel, do you want to talk to the Lord of the Rings?
The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
What we're building is something open source and free for people to use. It's basically a more intelligent browser. There are already systems out there that are doing similar things, like Hootsuite for social networking, and this is kind of a Hootsuite idea for everything. I think is that what you were talking about, what we're doing, or you're talking about service providers out there who want to be the ones that are the one and only?
Yeah, I just mean there's a tension in building an oracle, right? Like an oracle that is able to give you access to broad amounts of information.
What is the tension?
The tension for me is that then you become a curator, right? If you become the oracle, or you're designing an oracle, like you've already made a design decision by
Yeah.
the information that you're including in your oracle.
Yeah.
And so there's like, and knowing that there are economic, psychological, and societal boundaries to contribution to open
Yeah.
source, it's not a level playing field.
No,
And
no,
so
no,
there's
no, it isn't.
power.
No, 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 no.
So it's a power question.
Yeah. And I'm not pretending this is like giving everyone the power on the application. It's like we're putting forward an idea, and the idea is that we hope within the philosophy of the application it will give people the power to manage their lives better and save time. And so I think it would be, stay pressuring that. But I think at this stage, I think there's a lot of the vision that needs to be carried out. And then, And I don't think it's fair on anyone creating stuff to say, hey, you've just had an idea 20 minutes ago. Why are you not giving it away? And obviously we're giving it away to ourselves, but why are you not just like letting everyone else decide as well? Well, okay, I mean.
Yeah, I think that's a great question about so thinking about what values are baked in when we're creating things. It's going to be really important. Should we hear from Simon now?
So you're talking basically about the lower level, like we are building applications on top of what? Well, on top of this market-based context in which miners are competing for maintaining the network. Well, what we are trying to, there are great people working on that layer, we are not. We are trying to be agnostic on that layer in order to, okay, right now this is the way blockchains are maintained. We hope there will be alternatives to that, and there are several technologies that are putting forward ideas. We will be building on a second layer and try to be agnostic to this lower. I don't really love the context of a market to decide who puts the next block and whatever. Right now it's working, it's what we have. We can build prototypes on top of that and see how it plays out. Today, blockchain is very immature, so we don't know how this will evolve, basically.
Okay, so we had two questions.
Following on from the previous question to David.
Daniel. It's okay, I might change my name to David, actually. It might be easier.
So I'm an artist. I work in, I identify as artist-led. I work from an artist-led philosophy.
Sorry,
I'm an artist who works from artist-led philosophy.
Artist-led, thank you.
And I noted, or I kept wanting to hear, what is the participation of the artist in creating this platform, this structure? And to be honest, it's not a new idea, right? Because we've all, as artists, we've all wanted to kind of co-create our marketplace. But I think it's quite, for me as an artist, it would be really important to know the business model, how my data is actually co-contributing, and I'd want to know that I was a co-owner and have a share in it. Because otherwise, two design things happen. One is it ends up not really servicing the needs of an evolving community. Like pretty much everything that you put forward is a product or something that exists in a marketplace in a really conventional way. But actually a lot of the artist ecosystem doesn't necessarily look like that or work like that across all the disciplines. So I would say that's like from a design perspective. And secondly, I really do think that the participation of artists, we're not too busy to save $2 to like not organise our administration, because what happens is we lose our participation in decision making. So very similar to like agencies that come along and they go and hunt out real estate for you, and then they offer you studio space, co-working spaces, blah, blah, blah. But what you lose from having no involvement, you're too busy, you don't want to be involved in that sort of shit.
Cool.
Is actually really crucial to being an artist and having a political muscle and having something in the game.
Can we just take the second question? There's a lot in there, and that's a really good one for Daniel to dig into.
My
so we'll take the
memory's
second
really
one,
small
and
as
then I think what we'll do is go into it was right at the back. Somebody right at the back there. We'll go into discussion after.
I was just wondering what your business model was for Kenda, if it has one, and what the motivation was for the EU to fund you.
Okay, I'll answer both of those. So, Kendra Kendra.io is a project. It's backed by, it's hosted by Kendra Foundation, which is a non-profit organization registered in 2003. Over the past, since that date, we've had funding from the EU 2 times before and from the UK 1 time before. So we're non-profit, we're limited by guarantee. We took that stance because we saw for-profit companies making open source projects, but then being sold, like MySQL and so forth. And obviously then it just creates a lot of hassle. In terms of getting artists and artists involved, yes, not enough. We're really involved in the Imogen Heap's mycelia, and we've been to pretty much every meeting there. We are really open. I'm totally open, and we all are open to just involvement from whoever has the time and wants to speak to us and get stuff. That most of the ideas that we have are based on people coming to us and say, can you include this, can you include that? So have I missed anything out? About why are we choosing this? About control. So the app is not a service provider. It's effectively like a browser. It doesn't get in the way of your relationships with any of those service providers. So you don't sign up to a Kendra.io service, which then manages stuff for you. There's no contractual stuff there at all. It's basically purely providing that functionality that would link you into APIs. You would have to join all of those other service providers. And obviously, as I said, the app would help you do that quicker. But it's really about empowering. I create music too, and I draw too, and I studied at Camberwell. And so that's where I'm coming from. I want to actually spend most of my time doing fun, creative stuff. So, there you go. But please speak more to me. And there is, as far as I'm concerned, there's no data to sell. It's like we're not gathering that because there's the instance of the app, whether it be an artist or manager or whatever, they hold the data. This is the fun thing about it. It's also another fun thing is that if there are like thousands of apps out there and they all have their own data store, they can say contradictory things. So there's other things in there that we're talking about, conflict resolution, those kind of things, those kind of protocols can start to arise. Blockchain inherently doesn't have conflict resolution or signed or co-signed, collaboratively signed metadata before it goes into blockchain. Those things don't exist. They need to be built around. So you need to validate the information before you put it onto the blockchain, or during, or while it's on the blockchain. And so it's these kind of things that we're interested in. And having an interface that says, yeah, I agree with this split of the song, or this split of the project, and we have like 10 different people all going, yeah, we agree on this contract. So it's like, how do we build a smart contract? So it's those kind of things that we are interested in building interfaces for. I'm really passionate about user interfaces. And then the fun thing about that is it doesn't matter what the service is behind it. You can swap them out. You can keep changing them. So new services are going to come and go. But if we provide kind of like common interfaces and we get the interfaces right, then there's something quite interesting starts to happen. And we don't have to have a new app every time a new service comes along.
Daniel put forward an interesting use case on how to use blockchain for certain things or have software that can help and facilitate a community. I would be interested to hearing about your communities and your problems, and hopefully how blockchain and decentralized technologies can help in your specific projects. So the challenges that we face, and how can we imagine new narratives or new futures of how these communities that you are all involved in, how can they evolve or how can they scale, facilitated by these technologies. So hopefully you'll join us after lunch in order to do that.
Thank you to Thanks. This is going to be the discussion session, so welcome back.
So, what I would like to discuss with whomever wants to join me, Ruth Potts in the other room said, the soft stuff is the hard stuff. The soft stuff is the hard stuff. So, behind these processes, whether they're in a commons or implemented in a blockchain, there are bodies. So, in the rush for efficiency to get this done, what are we leaving behind? What are we outsourcing to the machine? In particular, I would like to talk about boundaries, conflict resolution. It's easy to put it on the blockchain, get the blockchain to do the bad cop thing, because no one wants to be the cop. But that is work that I feel necessarily has to be done at the human level. How can we combine this with these distributed systems? And also, where is the local in a distributed system that is implemented worldwide? So I want to think about this translocality too. So if you want to talk about bodies and the affective dimension of this, so please join me.
I want to talk about actually what is it going to look like and how will someone interact with it and what are we actually building anyway and what's the functionality and anyway, I think you get the idea. But so basically we'll be talking not necessarily about the color of it, but what is the kind of functionality we want within our applications, within our services. So it's less of a, I would idealize it's less of a kind of huge view of the whole world and more of like, what do I need to do? So come along if you have a problem that you want to talk about and that I want to see this thing fixed, or come along if you want to hear other people's problems.
So who others have ideas on that? I think we have one proposal there.
Hi, there's a session tomorrow titled, Is it time for a co-op coin? And I want to raise the question of, is it time for a commons coin? Specifically, insofar as real estate is concerned, because I believe historically this has been the most familiar concept of the common for the public. Why, if it's time, then why? Is it just because of the hype of the blockchain? Is it because of the features that the blockchain lends, like the traceability, the impact checkability, ease of raising money, just because it's in right now, people are curious about it? To what extent can we rely on technology insofar as automation, automating the management of such common? These are the kind of topics I'd like to address.
So, would any other person have any other question?
I've only, like most people, I've just been following blockchain or learning about it. But recently, well, only in the last few days, I've been learning about what is the holochain. And just speaking to someone outside, I didn't realize that all this pricing, where you put a price on the coin and the not in the blockchain, but in the Bitcoin, how it is so restrictive. So in the blockchain side, I just wanted to know, or in my interest anyway, is how can this be used to iron out or show more transparency on supply chains? Especially last few years, there's a lot of talk about Brexit in or out. Personally, I'm getting fed up of it because it's over and over. No one's talking about, amongst Brexit and Remainers, no one's talking about the fact that how sustainable are we in our respective countries in terms of local economy? And are we prepared to go more inwards instead of relying on stuff from outside? How could blockchain help shorten the supply chain is probably the better question. And make us more protected with our own countries rather than relying on something 3,000 miles away.
And I think last one.
Yeah.
Thanks. Hi. I have an answer to her question first. There's a project called Faircoin. I'm sure that you know about this, so this may be helpful for. No, was there a Faircoin event already? Oh yeah. No. Okay.
No, not
yeah,
this
no,
time.
this is a completely separate thing that may be useful for you. I'm thinking more about something really like small and pragmatic. You mentioned a hack space, how a hack space would operate in this context. And I would be very interested in exploring this, how a shared resource, like a physical resource, can be, and whether this is useful at all to maybe understand the usage of tools and resources and everything, and maybe through this help support diversity and equal access to that kind of stuff. I don't know. It's a thought that is outside of economic thinking about the blockchain.
Okay, so we can make now the groups and yeah. Who?
So I'm going to try to summarize. If I forget something, let me know. So we're starting discussing a bit the differences between, let's say, like the blockchain in the lower layer and the platforms on the top. So we started with that. And then we were raising some case studies. So for example, the hackerspace, the supply chain, and the housing project. We didn't enter any of them in bigger detail, perhaps the last one. For example, for the hackerspace, one of the ideas was like, okay, what does the blockchain does here? So we could have a login system into the blockchain. When I enter the hackerspace, I get certain points or time or whatever, or quantify certain stuff, and that's measured as a sort of contribution. And then you could have rules decided by the community in the hackerspace for whatever. We didn't go into detail, but just to give you an example. Then with the tax system, and that's where I think we get more in depth, we sort of identify several problems. One was the verification of identities, and also the problem of, okay, even if certain authority says something, how do we verify that that authority is actually verified by someone else, if I recall it properly? Yeah, who verifies the verifiers, sort of. So we're starting on that, thinking on reputation economy, basically. So if you behave, for example, a certain authority behaves wrongly, it will lose some reputation, something like that. But we're just starting that. I'm not sure if I summarized. I think that was it. Do it for the second.
Okay. High contrast. For us, it was this question of the soft stuff, it's the hard stuff. What are we giving up as we gain in efficiency through blockchains, especially in areas such as conflict resolution, boundaries? Can this all be outsourced to the machine? I'm going to give you my favorite cop-out, which is there are no answers, there are only better questions. So here are some better questions that emerged during the discussion. There are problems. Trust, do we outsource trust? Has the blockchain, has it got enough legibility for people to be able to trust a blockchain? Or are we delegating that trust? Where is the human tacit knowledge that is often mentioned in Ostrom and in the Commons? Is the blockchain a contractive space? Is it associative? Now, maybe there is a new kind of trust, but this trust seems to be on things, systems, maybe not humans. And are we leaving behind friction? Is friction necessarily undesirable, or is it part of a learning process? Does it include all these hidden dimensions? Many of the people in the group were struggling to visualize what is going on. And someone said, and I felt that this person said it for the whole group, if we don't understand, we cannot act consciously. In the subject of consciousness, somebody spoke about conscious usage of the blockchain. Is technology neutral, or is it this usage? Or at the design level, can we point out that technology may not be so neutral and that it advances certain interests, and that legibility of technology, or lack of thereof, will allow you to access and deploy that technology, or not? Some of us were skeptical of the social value of blockchain by asserting that governance is a human process that cannot be externalized to Skynet. And those were the better questions and comments, and more conversation ongoing.
So thanks everyone. It was very interesting discussions. And with your permission, we will be publishing a blog post with your insights. If someone has any issue with whatever they said that they don't want it published, just tell us now or shut up forever. In peer-to-peer models, in the project that we are working on, we are gonna try to take into account your feedback and others, precisely in the questions that you are exploring on how to implement, what are the challenges of implementing this in communities? How can we deal with the human affective part in the dry, cold, decentralized technologies, right? How can we deal with corpus of theory that are typically unexplored, being commons or feminism, and taking them into account when building actual technology that facilitates the work of commons-oriented communities, right? So if you are interested in these topics and would like to collaborate in some way, just drop us an email and we would be happy to find ways. As I said before, we are hiring a senior developer and a peer-to-peer, and a project manager. So if you're interested in that or know someone that could, please let us know. Otherwise, we will in some months have a core team that can deal with a network of collaborators remotely. So we would be happy to collaborate with any of you who is interested.
I think, thank you, can I just say thank you so much to everyone for really trying to grapple with all of these issues, because it's a really challenging area to talk about and to make it real. So can I have a sort of a round of applause for everyone and all the presenters today. Thank you.